Imagine that everything you believe about intelligence is wrong. Think of all the times you have wished to be smarter, to understand more, to see the world with greater clarity. Society tells us that intelligence is a gift, something to be admired and pursued. But what if I told you that intelligence, the very thing so many crave, might actually be a curse rather than a blessing? That the sharper your mind, the heavier your burden. That by the end of this video, you might no longer desire intelligence at all. Today, we will uncover a revelation that could permanently change the way you perceive your own mind. We will explore why Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brilliant yet deeply melancholic philosophers in history, believed intelligence was not a path to happiness, but to suffering. We will dissect his most unsettling ideas and discover why highly intelligent people often struggle in ways that others do not. And by the time we reach the final insight, you will understand the hidden cost of intelligence, one that society rarely acknowledges. Schopenhauer argued that intelligence is not a gateway to fulfillment, but rather a magnifying glass that amplifies the world's suffering. The more perceptive you are, the more illusions you see through, the more contradictions you notice, the more disappointments you experience. A brilliant mind does not just see reality, it sees through it, and what it finds is often tormenting. Have you ever felt disconnected from the people around you, as if your thoughts were heavier, your emotions deeper? Have you ever been lost in contemplation, while others seem content with the simplest pleasures? This feeling is not random, it is the weight of intelligence. Schopenhauer believed that highly intelligent individuals experience more pain because they cannot help but perceive life with a level of clarity that others do not. And that clarity often reveals unpleasant truths. The average person can find joy in the distractions of everyday life, socializing, entertainment, small pleasures. But an intelligent mind struggles with these things. It is not easily entertained. It questions, analyzes, and dissects. And in doing so, it often finds dissatisfaction. The deeper you think, the harder it becomes to find joy in the shallow comforts that bring happiness to others. Intelligence isolates. Schopenhauer himself was an isolated man. Despite his immense intellectual capacity, he lived much of his life in solitude, disconnected from the society that surrounded him. He observed the world with a sharp and critical mind, and what he saw only deepened his sense of disillusionment. He understood that intelligence is not just an ability, it is also a burden. It makes it harder to live in ignorance, harder to accept false comforts, harder to feel at ease in a world that often prioritizes illusion over truth. If you have ever felt that your thoughts are overwhelming, that your mind never truly rests, that you are constantly overanalyzing, always seeking, always questioning, then you are experiencing what Schopenhauer saw as the inevitable suffering of intelligence. He believed that the more intelligent a person is, the more they struggle with existential unease. They cannot simply exist, they must understand. And in the process of understanding, they often uncover truths that are difficult to bear. One of Schopenhauer's most striking observations is that highly intelligent individuals tend to have fewer friends, not because they are arrogant, but because they struggle to connect with those who do not think as deeply as they do. When your mind is filled with complex thoughts, simple conversations feel unsatisfying, small talk becomes exhausting, superficiality becomes unbearable, and as a result, isolation becomes inevitable. At this point, you might be wondering, if intelligence leads to loneliness, dissatisfaction, and suffering, why do people desire it? Why is intelligence so glorified? The truth is, society praises intelligence in theory, but does not reward it in practice. Intelligent individuals are often misunderstood, ridiculed, or left to wrestle with thoughts that most people do not care to entertain. But despite all of this, there is something even more troubling. Something that makes intelligence not just a burden, but a potential trap, a realization that could change the way you see intelligence forever. And in the next part, we will reveal the hidden cost that no one talks about. If intelligence is such a burden, why do we still chase after it? Why does society continue to uphold the idea that intelligence leads to a better life? The answer is simple. Intelligence is glorified not because it makes people happy, but because it makes them useful. Think about it. From an early age, those who show signs of high intelligence are praised, encouraged, and given more responsibilities. They are expected to solve problems, innovate, and think critically. Society values them for their ability to contribute, whether in science, philosophy, art, or leadership. But what society does not tell them is that intelligence comes with an emotional cost. The more intelligent a person is, the more they are expected to bear the weight of the world's problems. They are given responsibility but not relief, knowledge but not peace. Schopenhauer believed that the most intelligent people often feel alienated because they see what others do not. They recognize the absurdity of human existence, the fleeting nature of happiness, and the inevitability of suffering. They realize that much of what people do is merely an attempt to distract themselves from these painful truths. And once you see through these illusions, you cannot unsee them. Have you ever looked at a group of people laughing and felt like an outsider? Not because you do not want to laugh, but because you cannot shake the feeling that their joy is temporary, that beneath the surface, life remains filled with struggle and uncertainty. Have you ever questioned the very meaning of your own achievements, wondering if success and recognition truly matter in the grand scheme of things? If so, you are not alone. This is the paradox of intelligence. The ability to understand the world does not necessarily make it easier to live in. Schopenhauer suggested that the most intelligent people often suffer from existential dissatisfaction. They struggle to find meaning in conventional goals, money, status, relationships, because they see their transient nature. They are more likely to ask questions that have no comforting answers. What is the purpose of life? Does anything we do truly matter? Why do we chase happiness if it always fades? These questions do not trouble the average person, but for the intelligent mind, they become impossible to ignore. And this is where the true trap of intelligence lies. Intelligence allows a person to understand more, to see deeper, to analyze further. But what if some questions have no satisfying answers? What if deeper understanding only leads to greater frustration? This is what Schopenhauer warned about. He believed that intelligence could lead to a heightened awareness of suffering without offering any way to escape it. The intelligent mind, in its relentless search for truth, often strips away the comforting illusions that make life bearable for others. Religion, social traditions, the pursuit of pleasure, these things serve as anchors for most people, giving them a sense of direction and stability. But the intelligent person questions these things, and in questioning them, they risk losing the very illusions that provide meaning and purpose. This is why intelligence does not guarantee happiness. In fact, it often does the opposite. The most brilliant minds in history, Schopenhauer himself, Friedrich Nietzsche, Emil Cioran, struggled with profound disillusionment. They saw the world for what it was, and what they saw brought them more despair than joy. But here is the most unsettling truth of all. Intelligence does not just make life more difficult, it can become a prison. And in the next part, we will explore why those who possess great intelligence often find themselves trapped in a cycle of endless thought, unable to escape the very mind that sets them apart. Schopenhauer believed that intelligence, rather than liberating a person, could become a kind of prison. The more intelligent you are, the harder it becomes to turn off your mind, to stop thinking, to simply exist without questioning everything. For many, life is lived moment to moment, with simple joys and small concerns filling their days. But for the highly intelligent, every experience is filtered through an analytical lens. Every moment is dissected. Every decision is weighed against infinite possibilities. The result? A mind that never truly rests. Have you ever laid awake at night, unable to stop your thoughts from racing? Have you ever been paralyzed by overthinking, analyzing every past decision and every future possibility until action itself feels impossible? This is the paradox of intelligence. The mind that can understand so much is often the mind that suffers the most. Schopenhauer saw this as one of the great tragedies of human existence. The more intelligent a person is, the more they recognize their own limitations. They understand how little control they have over life, how unpredictable and chaotic the world truly is. They see how fragile human happiness is, how easily it can be destroyed by time, loss, or circumstance. This awareness creates a constant tension between the mind's desire for order and the reality of life's unpredictability. And it gets worse, because intelligence also amplifies another painful reality, the struggle with belonging. Society functions on shared illusions, beliefs in tradition, in progress, in the importance of certain social structures. But the more intelligent a person is, the more they question these things. They see flaws in the systems that others accept. They see contradictions in the values that others live by, and in doing so, they often find themselves disconnected from the people around them. Think about the greatest thinkers in history. How many of them lived content, peaceful lives? How many of them felt truly understood? Schopenhauer himself was notorious for his misanthropy, his disdain for the masses, his frustration with the superficiality of social life. He was not alone. Nietzsche, though brilliant, lived much of his life in solitude, ultimately descending into madness. Cioran, another philosopher of despair, once wrote that intelligence is the ability to comprehend that life is meaningless. These men were not simply pessimists. They were people whose intelligence led them to conclusions that made happiness nearly impossible. But this suffering is not just about loneliness. It is also about the inescapable weight of knowledge itself. There is a reason why many of the most intelligent individuals in history have struggled with depression, anxiety, and existential crises. When your mind is capable of understanding so much, you cannot help but see the absurdity of human existence. You see how people chase after things that will not last. You see how civilizations rise and fall, how human beings repeat the same mistakes over and over again. You see how fragile life is, how fleeting happiness can be, how inevitable suffering is. And once you see these things, it is almost impossible to unsee them. This is the true curse of intelligence. It does not allow a person to live in blissful ignorance. It forces them to confront truths that others can easily ignore. It makes them aware of the fleeting nature of happiness, the illusions that hold society together, the inescapability of suffering. And the worst part, there is no off switch. An intelligent mind cannot simply choose to stop thinking, to stop questioning, to stop seeking answers that may not even exist. At this point, you might be wondering, if intelligence is such a trap, is there a way out? Can a highly intelligent person ever find peace? The answer is complicated. And in the final part, we will explore Schopenhauer's ultimate insight, the one thing that might free an intelligent mind from its own suffering. Schopenhauer's ultimate insight into the curse of intelligence was not just an acknowledgement of suffering, it was a potential way out. He understood that intelligence creates an inescapable cycle of deep thought, existential questioning, and ultimately, disillusionment. But was there a solution? Was there a way for an intelligent person to escape the burden of their own mind? Schopenhauer believed that the key to overcoming the suffering of intelligence was not through seeking more knowledge, nor through attempting to change the world. Instead, he proposed something radical: detachment. The only true escape from the torment of overthinking, from the crushing weight of understanding too much, was to step back from it all, to detach from the illusions of society, from the endless pursuit of meaning, and from the very idea that life must be constantly analyzed. This idea was deeply influenced by Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism, which Schopenhauer studied extensively. He saw parallels between his own pessimistic view of life and the Buddhist concept of suffering. Just as Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment and desire, Schopenhauer argued that the suffering of intelligence arises from the mind's relentless attachment to its own thoughts. The more a person tries to intellectualize life, the more they suffer. The more they seek absolute truth, the more they realize how little certainty there actually is. But how does one detach? How does an intelligent mind escape its own prison? Schopenhauer suggested that one way was through art, particularly music. He saw music as a form of temporary liberation, a way for the mind to experience existence without the constant need for analysis. Unlike philosophy or science, which require critical thought, music speaks directly to emotion. It allows a person to feel without having to understand. And in those moments of pure feeling, the burden of intelligence is momentarily lifted. Another path, he believed, was through what he called the denial of the will. This meant rejecting the constant striving that dominates human life, the need for status, success, and external validation. Schopenhauer saw these things as illusions, as distractions that only deepen suffering. Instead of chasing after more knowledge, more achievements, or more understanding, he argued that a truly intelligent person should seek inner stillness, not through ignorance, but through acceptance. But perhaps the most profound insight of all, the one that ties everything together, is that intelligence only becomes a curse when a person allows it to control them. When the mind is in charge, life becomes an endless cycle of questioning, analyzing, and seeking meaning where none may exist. But when a person learns to observe their own thoughts without being consumed by them, intelligence transforms from a burden into a tool that can be used without allowing it to dominate one's life. This is the final paradox of intelligence. Those who are truly intelligent must learn to silence their minds, to step away from the very thoughts that set them apart. Because in the end, intelligence is only a prison if you let it be one. So now the question is yours to answer. Is intelligence truly a gift or is it a burden? And more importantly, if you had the choice, would you still want to be intelligent? Thanks for looking.